abbiamo un ulteriore incontro del ciclo seminariale Cinema, città, architettura e qui la professoressa Christelle Lecoeur, che abbiamo l'onore di ospitare perché Christelle lavora con il gruppo di ricerca del Laboratoire d'architecture, culture, société dell'ENSA, l'Ecole Nationale Supérieure Paris Malaquais. Con la quale noi siamo in procinto, l'università, se non sto bene in casa, è in procinto di realizzare una collaborazione di ricerca e di condivisione di risultati di ricerca, di pubblicazioni e di seminari, e io spero vivamente che questa cosa vada in porto anche in futuro, benché gli scenari attuali non siano molto promettenti. In ogni caso siamo veramente onorati di avere qui con noi Christelle Lecoeur e oggi in particolare Christelle ci illustrerà un film che nel corso del tempo è diventato un cult del cinema israeliano, un film di preziosissimo, di grande valore, il cui titolo è Light Out of Nowhere di Nissim Dayan del 1900. Io prima di introdurvi brevemente Christelle e il film di cui parlerà oggi, ho qui con me i saluti che ci manda il direttore del Laboratoire d'Architecture Culture Société dell'ENSA, il professor Jacques Foll, con il quale appunto intraprenderemo questa collaborazione. E vorrei leggervi le poche righe che lui ci ha mandato, che sono molto molto affettuose e molto care. Allora, ci manda innanzitutto i suoi migliori auguri per il programma che stiamo realizzando, per l'iniziativa che stiamo realizzando, ovviamente molto interessante, lui scrive, al quale mi rammarico sinceramente di non aver potuto assistere e partecipare. Sappiamo tutti, scrive Jacques Foll, che la città è molto più del mezzo del cinema in cui essa si proietta, ma i film realizzano e rifanno lo spazio urbano, iscrivendovi le loro scene, e queste stesse scene, le cui drammaturgie intensificano l'immaginazione della città e combinano gli spazi fluidi del cinema, sono quelle che appunto si combinano con le costruzioni della città di oggi. Poi Jacques conclude con tanti auguri, congratulazioni a tutti e sono molto onorata, molto lieta del saluto che il professor Foll ci ha fatto, anche perché rimarca questo interessante questo notevole rapporto di lavoro, di ricerca che abbiamo intrapreso con l'ENSA. Ritornando invece al film di oggi che la professoressa Lecoeur ci presenterà, vorrei spendere soltanto 2 parole, poi ne parleremo insieme con lei durante la discussione e con i discussant. Quello che mi ha colpito di questo film di Nissim Dayan del '73, ripeto, e innanzitutto io non conoscevo il film, quindi devo ringraziarla per avermelo fatto conoscere. E una cosa molto interessante che mi fa piacere introdurre per gli studenti è il modo in cui questo film si possa correlare alla storia e al profilo storico e sociopolitico anche dell'Italia e dell'Europa. Per quale motivo? In realtà c'è un parallelismo molto forte che la professoressa Lecoeur, che Christelle farà anche dopo, e che mi ha fatto partire da 2 date importanti, che sono il 1962 e la data di uscita di un film famosissimo di Pierpaolo Pasolini, di cui parlerà anche Christelle, che è Mamma Roma, ed è il film probabilmente insieme a Ossessione di Luchino Visconti che rappresenta pienamente il neuralismo italiano e la situazione storica post secondo conflitto mondiale. Allo stesso tempo nel 1972 esce esattamente 10 anni dopo, esce questo film di Nissim Dayan, of Nowhere, ed è un quadro duro e realistico di una Tel Aviv non ancora città bianca, cioè di una Tel Aviv non ancora completamente investita, tra virgolette, dall'architettura e dall'estetica del Bauhaus, quindi delle correnti artistiche europee. Quindi questa correlazione che poi farà Christelle dopo nella sua discussione, mi sembra una correlazione che ci mette in rilievo due segni importanti, e cioè da un lato il segno storico-politico del dopoguerra italiano, e del dopoguerra anche europeo, e dall'altro invece il segno storico e sociale della realtà diciamo israeliana e palestinese, che ha un suo percorso storico drammatico e che è ancora tutt'oggi abbastanza molto drammatico. In queste due parole, giusto per introdurvi al film, e non voglio togliere altro tempo a Christelle, I pass the word to Christelle. Are you ready?
Yes. Buongiorno.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Buongiorno a tutti. Grazie Daniela e Jack. Thank you very much. I warmly thank you, Daniela, for your invitation and this short introduction. Yes, you said quite everything. I don't need to speak anymore. I'm really happy to be here today.
No.
I am. And I'm really sorry I will talk in English because my Italian is just not enough for such a talk. So, scusa. So, as an architect, my way of practicing architecture is hybrid between projects, education, research, publication. I'm also a student. And with a PhD in architecture in progress. And this is the reason why I am here today. So I'm really deeply delighted to participate in this beautiful and exciting program on cinema, cities, and architecture between humanities and architecture also. And I must say, this is a subject I deal with more than 20 years by now, since my master in architecture in Paris. At that time, I worked on no man's lands in Rome, Berlin, Paris, after the Second War in cinema. So I can say this is my personal subject of research to express matters of architecture and urbanism through a corpus of movies. I just work with movies, actually, and to talk about cities and landscape by means of cinema, and to question also cinema on architectural matters as well. I don't work as a movie historian. I'm not an historian. I'm an architect. And I am an architect who asks herself what the movie towards architecture can express. My aim is to ask myself what the space filmed the way it is filmed says and means, and why this particular space is shown in a film and what does it mean. This is why I really analyze film, for instance, with the film industry, and I get focused on stories and narrative emerging from the way spaces are filmed. The way I work bring new stories the cinema historians often do not bring up. So as I am an architect, I also work with our favorite tools, I mean drawing. So it helps me to express ideas that words can express easily and to express also spaces. So today I will speak about an Israeli film from the 70s. This is called Light of Nowhere. So I will share my screen by now. I guess it will work. Yep. So this film, unfortunately, is very little known in Europe, and you won't find it on YouTube, even in Hebrew. But I will show you some screenshots and also a kind of trailer in Hebrew, but you will easily find what it is talking about, and you will really understand, and it will give you also some clues. This film is part of my corpus I am working on for my PhD. So to introduce you briefly with my subject, I worked on domestic spaces through Lebanese, Israeli, Palestinian cinema since the 70s. I must say also that I am not Israeli, nor Lebanese, nor Palestinian. I'm just French. So I have no familiar context with this, with those countries at all. The Arab-Israeli conflict is not the subject of my thesis, but a context, and I worked on minor conflicts that disintegrate societies from within. For instance, I worked a lot with exile as a starting point, and I worked on flows between countries due to war. For example, Lebanese Jews going to Israel after 6 days war, Palestinian moving to Lebanon, European Jews coming to Israel, and all those flows. This subject, I guess, is very contemporary also, because with exile, we leave always a home to find a new one, but often it doesn't work. So what interests me is why it doesn't work, and especially what is the architecture that we live, because we always leave a space, and the space also has a form. What is the architecture that we dream of? Because we are always dreaming of a new home. That's why we leave a place, and the one that we have as a result. And so there is always a question of form in my work. And also I work with notions like modernity, archaism, community, citizenship, identity. Of course, there is a very political dimension in my work, and I must be familiar, as you said, Daniela, with economic, historical, and sociological context of these territories. And of course, all this work deals with the idea that architecture is political and domestic spaces too. This is the very core of my work. So home as politics. So now let's talk about this film, so Light Out of Nowhere. First, I will introduce you to the film and its context, because maybe you may not be very familiar to Israel during the 70s, and I could understand very well. So it's important to get some clues in order to go deeper in the images and to understand why such a film can interest us as architects. So I will talk about what kind of spaces are shown and what narratives are underlying, because this is what I am interested in, the question of what we don't see on the surface. What I will try to highlight also is never related by critics. And I guess this is because I am an architect that I am analyzing the film the way I do it. So I am sure that as architects, we have a value to bring to critics in cinema, but also in other disciplines like literature, for instance. So first, the film and its context. So normally I change the image. The film was made in 1973. It is a fiction with no professional actors. The movie is now a masterpiece in Israel, but at that time, less than 1,000 people saw it, and it was a big failure. It is a neo-realistic black and white drama. That's why also I choose this film today to talk about, because there is a lot of links with Italian cinema, and I guess that could be interested for you also. It tells the story of Shaul. This is the young guy on the left of the image. He's 17 and he is of Sephardic background, so probably must be Moroccan. He returns to his father's home from an agricultural boarding school where he studies, and he will help his poor family with work. There is no mother at all, and Shaul is torn between his longing for a better life and his loyalty to his delinquent brother. So this is a brother here on the bed. And Islam's friends. So here you see Shaul with his friends on the street. In the film, the choices the Israeli society can offer him is either exile, prison, army, or a low-considered job. They live in the southern district of Tel Aviv, which is a slum where Sephardic people live in poverty. Shaul is born in Israel, so he's not an immigrant. To remind you what is Sephardic Jews, this is Jew people coming from northern African countries like Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia. And at that time in Israel, they are more or less considered like second-class citizens. The neighborhood we see on screen is a real one. This is in Tel Aviv. This is called Shabazi, which become now Neve Tzedek. Maybe you are familiar with this place. And it is an Arab Jew district. This place is still existing, but now it's partly gentrified. But there remained a lot of social problem in some places, actually. So now you have those clues. I will show you a kind of trailer I find in YouTube, I must say. This is in, sorry, where is it? Oh, here it is. This is in Hebrew, but you will understand quite easily what it is talking about. So this is Shaul. This is a father, Ahu. No, Avram, sorry, Avram. So this is a brother on the bed and his friends. This scene is very important. I will talk about later. Look at the room which is being destroyed on the right of the screen and keep it in mind. This is Shaul with his girlfriend. So this scene is very important, and I translated what the woman is talking about in Italian. So I will show you in our next image. Oh, sorry. Okay. So I guess you can understand a little bit more about this film. And now we can go a little bit deeper, and I would like also to introduce you the way I work and how I analyze in fact this film. So I work as an architect, and I work with scale. So I work from the smaller scale to the big scale. So it can be from the window to the territories, actually. And today we can ask ourselves, why this film? Why I am introducing you this film? Why I choose to present you this film? Why this neighborhood also is presented? And why this story? So I guess this is very important to keep this question in mind, because it will help to follow the analyze. So first, who is the director? The director is Nissim Dayan. I think we can't speak about a film without knowing anything about its director. I got an interview last year with him. He's quite old by now, and that puts light a lot on several elements. First, Nissim Dayan is a filmmaker of Oriental background, but he is from Syria. He's not from Morocco or Algeria. And he's born in Tel Aviv. The place where the film is shot is real, and the story is highly inspired by his own childhood and the family of neighbors he used to know. He spends also his childhood in a place not that so far from this district in the film, so this is a reason also that helps him to shoot in this area. Is highly influenced by his master Pasolini, so that's why I put an image of Mama Roma, because we can have a lot of similarities between those two films. We can also find obvious links with La Ricotta, the Pasolini also, and if you see both films, you will see that there is a lot of images that are very, very similar. With the young boy also. Then I told you that this film was shot in Tel Aviv. But what is Tel Aviv in 1973? Today, Tel Aviv is very famous for its outdoor life with beach and club and international youth. It is a very open-minded city, welcoming LGBT plus people. It's also a startup city without religious background as Jerusalem. It's also known as the White City with the Bauhaus architecture and UNESCO label. But in 1973, the urban and sociological landscape was totally different. The city was first less white, it was more brown, and the Bauhaus district was just a neighborhood among others, not gentrified as it is today, with no heritage concern at all, and it was more or less derelict. It was also a smaller city than today, with less inhabitants. The seaside was not a Californian marina with restaurants and entertainment as you can see today, and it was more derelict, and it was also highly polluted with the port, and it was also very popular, and you can have an idea of what it looks like at that time with Uri Zohar films, Mitzim. In English, this is Peeping Tom, and in French, this is Les Voyeurs. This is a very, very famous Israeli film director. It's like François Truffaut in France, and this is a very famous film also. So I can advise you to see this film if you are interested in Israeli cinema and the representation of Tel Aviv in cinema. So also on screen, during the 70s, southern district of Tel Aviv are mostly not shown at all. It is used to shoot in the northern part of the city with the Bauhaus architecture, like Dizengoff's places, or in the Arab town of Jaffa. So for example, David Perloff shot his diary in the 70s from his window, and this is in the northern district of the city. Or, for example, Menachem Golan shoot Casablanca, which is a musical comedy in the Arab town of Jaffa. Between those 2 points in the city, nothing exists in Tel Aviv mental movie map. So this is very, very new to show such a neighborhood on screen. And those people, as I told you, are not Hadashim. It means that they are not immigrants. They live in this place since 1930s, and nobody wanted to talk about that matter at that time. And even the mayor of the city at that time, Shlomo Lahat, says that he didn't want to talk about this film and disliked it a lot. And he said that there is no people like that in my city. It is an insult for people. So now we have also to ask ourselves, what is Israel in 1973? To sum up, in this year, the country is more or less nearly to explode socially. First, after Kippur War, Israel experiences many human losses and trauma. The country is on the brink of a political and social crisis. Zionism is also in crisis, and this will lead to the victory of the right wing 4 years later with the Likud party. A lot of young people wanted to move from Israel and had a better life abroad. So the film echoes to this issue with Baruch, who wants to move to Germany and not in the US. So this is a political statement. And his girlfriend wants to move to Italy, where she has relatives. Even the film is not that much so political at the first glance. It is a fiction. This is not a documentary. Its background is strongly political. And we can't see the film without making any connection to what it is happening at that time in Israel. So with the social background, there is an emerging social movement which has raised the past 3 years with second generation of young Moroccan immigrants. So they call themselves Israeli Black Panthers in reference to the American ones, the Black Panthers. So their revendications are political, but also a lot of social, and they are asking first for housing and a decent housing, and also for political visibility for Oriental people, which means Jew people coming from Arab countries. The fact is that immigrants from Arab countries, as in the rest of the country, and not also in Tel Aviv, experience very strong segregation and are considered second-class citizens in their own country, with lower chance to get to university, to get a proper job, and to be just considered. They remain the labor force for the factories, fields, and the army without other future. They are considered very archaic, whereas Jews from European roots, like Ashkenazi people, are considered as modern Jew. I just sum up. I could speak a lot about these matters, but I have to shorten my time. So a year after the film was launched, the Black Panthers thought it was the film that they needed. And Nissim Dayan had the Black Panthers Award for his film. Also, we have to ask ourselves, what is the cinema in Israel during the 70s? Some drama are emerging with new narratives also. They are inspired by the French Nouvelle Vague, and they are called the New Sensibility. Also, for the first time, fictions are less propaganda than before. You can see on screen, minority people that we are not used to see on screen, like a widow from war, a Palestinian, and also this is very new to show those figure in the cinema. The film is also the first time that Oriental Jews appears on screen in a drama, and this is not a comedy. This is very important because the last years during the 60s, there are a lot of comedies in Israel which are called burekas. And they are always showing Oriental people, but this is a way to make fun of them in a way. So this film is really a turning point in the Israeli cinema. So now let's go back to the film. So obviously, the film shows us a lot of social problem in the 70s. Moroccan Israeli are judged inferior, are low considered. They don't speak Yiddish, which means they are not Ashkenazi and they are not from Europe. So there is a scene that express this in the film. Also, with your name, if you have a name which sounds quite Arabic or which can be identified as an Arab name, you are taken away by the police as if your name was enough to be guilty. So more than the words of the scene, the space reveals also all this social discrimination. And as you may notice through the trailer I show you, the film presents both interiors and both exteriors of the neighborhood. So first I will talk about the exterior of the neighborhood. So you may have noticed this is a very poor urban space. The ground is in rammed earth. The mud house are in ruins. Wooden and tin barrack, even in ruins, serve our refuge, shall we say. The inhabitants seem prisoners of the district. Those who come out, like the young soldier, you may have noticed him. They are always back in the district, but they can't hardly move out from the district. For example, Charles will go out twice in the film from his neighborhood, but he always can come back. However, there are no barriers, no checkpoint, no frontiers, but there are invisible walls. Those who enter to the neighborhood, this is the police, to arrest and destroy a house. And the Western tourists, this is the girl you see here, who transmit a sexual illness to the gang. So it's always a misfortune who enters the place. Everything that comes from the outside is even worse than what makes the neighborhood. And also, you never know where the neighborhood is in the city. Are we on the outskirts? Are we in a central district? We have absolutely no ideas of where this place is in Tel Aviv. The district seems to live on itself without any connection in the city, and there is no horizon at all. For example, we don't see the seaside at all, for instance. During all the film, also the actors walk a lot. And they go around in circles. They are just making circles in the neighborhood. As soon as they leave the neighborhood, they are arrested, humiliated, beaten. And even in their own neighborhood, they are quite trapped. So also in the film, what I also notice, this is the space in between. You have all a lexical of courtyard between two walls in a alley, the doors, the balconies, the threshold, all the space between private and public spaces. This is where most of the scenes are shot, and this notion is also very rich, first as an architectural background, but also for the stories, because Charles is in between. He is between childhood and adult life, his father and his brother, his girlfriend and his friends, his school and his future job, his block and the city, present and future. And when Nissim Dayan, so the director, shot inside the house of the Shetrit, there is details that drew my attention. This is this window you see on the screen. with railing. During the whole film, father and brother are placed as if they were behind the railing, as if they were like in a prison. So you see the brother here, and it's like he is in prison. And at the end of the film, he will be arrested, actually. And Shaul is always seen as if he stands in a open space. Sorry, it means as if it means that the whole generation and the brother are convicted, but not him. He's always in an open space, as if the future would be an open, would be more open for him. And in fact, at the end of the film, the end remains open. You don't know if it will follow his brother or his father, or if he will follow his own life. So I work on a drawing to sum up this. So see this little drawing you see on the back of the page. And also I notice another scene that for me is very important. So I will introduce you by now. And for me, this scene, which had never been stated by the critics, sum up all the social oriental crisis in Israel and even in Israeli cinema. So during the whole film, you can notice is in a background a room being built by several men as an adding room to an existing house. So that's what you see on my little sketches. And the room is being built more and more, but we never know anything about it. It's just a silent background. And nearly at the end of the film, what was in the background becomes in the foreground. And suddenly policemen arrive and destroy the room being built illegally. And a woman screams at them, and here is her discourse. So thank you, Google Translation. I translated from Hebrew to English and French and then to Italian. So I hope you will understand, but that gives you the context, and the context is very strong here. Her speech is very political and critical, and with those sentences it expresses all the resentment of the Orientals towards the state of Israel. And for me, this scene highlights two things. First, the inability of the state to provide decent housing to its people, and the refusal to let the people improve their living condition. You should know that Orientals often remain in very poor housing condition in Israel. They may remain, when they immigrate, sometimes 7 years in a camp. And then after many years, they moved to low-cost housing in the outskirts of the cities or in the deserts, in new developed cities, with no space, with no social ties, and it was not a city at all in a way. And also low rent housing destroyed a lot of their lifestyle in the community also, because the family oftenly was destroyed and put in the north of the country or in the south of the country, so there were no links anymore. And it was supposed to build the average Israeli and make them abandon their Arab culture to embrace an Israeli culture. So this film is therefore a social critique also of housing policy in Israel in the 1970s. What is never expressed actually with the cinema historian, for instance. So to conclude my words, I think this film has such a richness that we could talk about it hours and hours, and I could speak also a lot of more about housing politics in Israel and also architecture, because with this adding room to the present, to the existing house, it deals with some more architectural debate in Israel at that time. But I can also go further with mentioning a documentary which has been launched a few years later, which is a documentary by Amos Gitai. So Amos Gitai, this is an Israeli filmmaker you may know. He's an architect also who became a filmmaker. And it deals with the same issues. It is called Architektura. And sorry, so I'm quite late with my pictures. So this was the scene you see. So this is Architektura. And it deals with slums and modern living and Moroccan immigrants. So you can see on the first image the relationships between modern architecture and the slum, and with more archaic condition of living. And then you can see the people immigrating from the slum to the modern housing, and then the modern housing, which doesn't fit actually the community at all, because they don't live in those kind of spaces they are not used to, and they used to live with a strong relationship with the exterior, which doesn't exist anymore in this kind of building. So what I wanted to see here is that with a couple of contextual elements also, we can go very far in analyzing a film and bring a lot of new material to critique, thanks to our architect's glance. And also, I guess this film could really make bridges with Italian cinema and neorealism cinema also in Italy during the 50s, 60s, and also to the social Italian background. So thank you. And I also put some links if you want to go further in the chat.
Yes, thank you so much, Christelle. And I don't know if there are some questions. Do you have something to say to the students? Okay.
Just a moment.
Thank you so much, Christelle, for your complete picture of this film and of situation in Tel Aviv and Israeli situation. I think it's very interesting comparison. Do you hear?
Yes.
I think it's very interesting comparison with neuralistic time and neuralistic film, and I think that that there is a comparison among 16 and 17 show us that there is in the same place an archivistic function and a synergic function that give us historical and social picture of the situation. But I wanted to ask to you a thing. I see that there is a transposition of the Bauhaus in Israeli city. I'm talking about Tel Aviv as a white city, and I want to ask to you, how strong is the sign of the Israeli-Arab conflict in the Tel Aviv architecture as a white city? Is there a sign of this conflict or disappeared completely?
You mean in cinema or in general?
In general.
There is a book called White and Black City. And this is about the link between northern part of Tel Aviv and Jaffa, and also southern part of Tel Aviv near Jaffa, because you have the northern part with the Bauhaus architecture. Now is a kind of label, but it's also a way of thinking, and this is also a way to act in a way about the Arab and Israeli conflict. And then you have those southern district like Shabazi, like Neve Tzedek, more in the south of the city, which is considered like Black Tel Aviv. This is not white Tel Aviv, this is Black Tel Aviv. This is where immigrants are habiting. And this is some district very derelict in a way. This is not a white architecture at all, and some places looks like quite the same that you see in the film actually. And this is not more about Arab and Israeli conflict. This is more about immigrants and Israeli society, and the way the immigrants are considered in the society actually, because in Israel since for more than 20 years by now, there is a social crisis, a political crisis, as you know, but also a housing crisis, because Israel by now is housing in Israel is very hard to find. First, there is less engagement and statement of the state in housing policy. So by now it's more private in politics, and also it's very expensive to find a place where to live in Israel, and because the country is small first, of course, so that's why also the colonies, this is because there is a social crisis about housing, so they want to get places because they need places, because there is no housing at all. And so this is much more a social crisis with housing than even, I guess, a trouble between Israeli and Arabs in the country. But by now, all the district of with Bauhaus architecture is totally gentrified. This is millions of dollars to get an apartment there. It's a very rich part of the city, and you can't afford a place there. A flat is $1 million, for example, for 80 meters square. It's like Paris or New York, actually. It's very, very expensive.
Okay. Thank you so much, Christelle. Is there any question for Professoressa Lecoeur? I ask you students if se avete domande potete farle anche in italiano, poi cerchiamo di tradurle. Non sento nessuno. Ne approfitto io per chiederti un'altra cosa, Christelle, to make another question to you. It's very interesting this comparison I said between neuralistic plays in Italy and Israeli neuralism. But in 1942, for example, we had in Italy Obsession by Luchino Visconti, and it is the play with in which the neuralist cinema took place. But in 1949, the Andreotti law subordinated state aid to a government control system in Italy. And the film could be denied an export license if they defamed Italy. For example, bicycle thieves was censored. It happened the same thing for the plays in Israel.
Yes, yes, because for instance, this film, so Light Out of Nowhere, was very a failure when it was launched in the 70s, and because the audience was not prepared to see kind of images at all, actually. And also, it was not the Oriental Israeli who went to cinema to see this film. It was European root Israelis who came to the cinema. So they had not the same mentality, and so that's why it was a big failure, because there were no audience for this film, and now there is this audience, because Oriental Jews, we are now third generation of Oriental Jews in Israel, and things are going in other ways. So by now they can have a strong link to this film. But at that moment, this film could not be seen by people. It could not be being accepted in a way. It was too political, and you couldn't show this this part of the city to represent Israel. It was very hard to show this kind of territory on a screen. This film went to the Festival of Cannes. So what do you show of Israel is a slum. So no, you can't show this. So it was very hard to accept also for the Israelis that this kind of territories existed at that time, and they are still existing. And you couldn't accept these issues in a way, because of course Oriental people were not in politics. They remain in very low considered jobs, so they had no power in politics, and they had no representation at all. So showing this was very, very, very political in a way, and very critical, because you show what nobody wants to show actually. So that's why this film now is a masterpiece, because it's a turning point. But at that time, well, no, it was very hard to show this kind of images, because we have to say also one thing, that Israeli cinema at the beginning is a cinema of propaganda. It's like in USSR, it's like in Soviet Union. This is a cinema which is mostly inspired by Russian cinema of the 20s. So this is a cinema that have to deal with a strong image of the country, which is a young country which has been born due to a war. So you have to express power in a way, and to express the country. So you can't show defeat, you can't show illness, you can't show poor people. You can't show what would be a failure for Israel. You can only show what makes Israel powerful. So you can. So that's why most of the cinema so most of the films in the 50s, for instance, present what it is called sabra. A sabra is a young man who is born in Israel and who is raised in Israel. He has no religious background. He is not a Jew in exile. And he is a man who will fight for his country. So most of the time he is either a soldier or he worked on a kibbutz. So this is a young man. He's blonde. He's of European background, and he is a strong, thin, blonde-haired man, and of course he has values of faith, he believes in his country in a way. So he is not a dark-haired guy talking with his friends on the ground in the slums. That's a big difference. So in the 50s, this is the image of Israel. This guy, this Sabra. And then with Nissim Dayan, another part of the citizen are shown through this film, and this is the Oriental parts, which are mostly the main immigrants in this year, because during the 60s, most of the people immigrating in Israel are from Oriental countries, because there are first decolonization in Algeria, in Morocco, in Tunisia. Most of the Jews from those countries left in France or in Canada, but a part moved also in Israel. And also with all the social conflict in Iraq, for example, Iran, Lebanon, Syria, Egypt. So a lot of, with nationalization also, most of the Jews from Oriental backgrounds are moving to Israel. And so they are increasing the population, and this population that was partly Russian or Oriental, from Oriental Central Europe, for example. At a moment, the melting pot is arriving, and the people are coming with other references of other backgrounds, and an Arab culture also. And at that time, the culture was more Russian or German culture in the country. So that make a big turning point at that moment, and they have no representation in the cinema, so they can't have an image in the cinema. They don't have any representation at all. So at that moment, that's why also those films are emerging, because there is a need to express something else of the Israeli society, because what we see in the cinema doesn't correspond at all to what the Israeli society is.
Thank you, Christelle.
Excuse me. Excuse me. My high school students of the Liceo San Tommaso d'Aquino in Naples would like to know, is the difference between Pasolini's Italian neuralism cinema and that of director Nissim Dayan?
Well, I don't know a lot of Pasolini, so I can't reply in a very accurate way. But Nissim Dayan told me that his master in cinema was Pasolini, and he was very strongly influenced by Mama Roma and La Ricotta. And so there is first a very similar way to shoot in black and white first, and strongly black and white. Also to shoot the city has Pasolini, because there is a kind of similar way to shoot in a real space and to show what is the city at that time. So this is the same approach in a way, and also the stories are quite similar because we work with popular we are not dealing with bourgeoisie at all. We are dealing with workers and second class, in a way, citizen in the country, or the people that are not shown at all most of the time in the cinema. So I think this is the links we can see, the stronger between both of them. And also about this question of archaism and modernity, because we know that Pasolini went to Israel and Palestine before shooting for his Vangelio. How do you say Il Vangelio? Is it right? Sorry. The film he shot in Matera.
Ah, ok.
Vangelo secondo me.
So he went at the first. His first idea is to film in Israel and Palestine. So he moved there, and there is a documentary about this. And then he discovered that the country is not archaic or biblical. This is just very modern, with kibbutz and with blocks of housing, and he doesn't find what he wants to find at all. He just find modernity, and there is nothing biblical at all for him. So that's why finally he decided to go back to Italy and to set in Matera, because this is the landscape he needs to get biblical for his film. But so I guess this is quite the same approach also here. You won't see any modernity in the film, excepting when Shaul is moving out his neighborhood, and he's moving in the main places of in Tel Aviv at that time, which are big avenue and big boulevard. But you see this links between archaism and modernity and how it deals with. And as far as I can speak a little bit about Pasolini, I guess we have this same relationships to a culture and also to a landscape. When Pasolini films ruins, for example, in Mama Roma, this seems the same approach here with the slums in a way.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And the same kinds of, but as a documentary of David Parlov, for example, in Diary, but in the 70s.
Yes. So David Perloff is a very, very famous filmmaker in Israel. He can be considered like the Israeli Jean-Luc Godard, I would say. And during more than 15 years, he will film his daily life with his family and his travels, and he will comment all what is happening in Israel. So it's very new because it's a documentary, but it's almost a fiction also, and he always shoots from his window. So wherever he is, he shoots from a window. So it can be also the window of the car, but there is always this screen and this frame with the city in the background. So it travels in Paris, in Brussels, in Lisbon, in Rio de Janeiro, in São Paulo also, and always with his camera. And this is a very, very new way also of shooting Israel, and this is the first documentary in Israel in a way. And for instance, Amos Gitaï will never say it, but he's very influenced by David Perloff. And also David Perloff is an artist. He paints, he takes pictures, and all this works deal with this cinema also. So and this is a very, very new way to shoot the city and to shoot a personal experience, because it has never been done before in Israel first. And then also you see the city as it is, and you see life at it is. There is no makeup at all. And all the narratives also speaks about what is happening in Israel. So, for example, it starts with Ciclo War, then you have Lebanon War, and you have a lot of elements which influence his narratives and his speech during more than 15 years, I guess, because and it lasts more than 3 hours. I don't remember, but it lasts a long time, and well, this is an incredible masterpiece for me.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. It was also very interesting to observe the Bauhaus architecture and the various settings.
So sorry, I didn't hear you very well.
It was very interesting to observe the Bauhaus architecture,
yes,
and the various settings.
Yes, because yes, this Bauhaus architecture, finally, it doesn't appear a lot in the Israeli cinema, because when I started to work on my PhD, I said, okay, that will be quite easy to work on architecture in Israel because I have this Bauhaus heritage. But finally, I didn't find a lot of films that are set in these places, or that or which take it at more than a background, actually. And finally, it was more interesting to work with some other places than the Bauhaus architecture district.
Well, is there any question? Well, Christelle, I hope you can give some link to the students.
Yes, I copy some links in the chat, so you will find the trailer first. You will have a link with Amos Gitaï about architettura, the documentary we speak about. Then I sent you also another film about the question of Oriental in Israel. This is called Salah Shabati. This is a very, very, very popular comedy in Israel. And this is the total opposite from Light Out of Nowhere. This is a comedy, and Salah Shabati is coming with his family from Yemen. But also, as an architect, you can discover a lot of issues about housing and about policy in housing, because when he arrived in Israel with his family, he said, okay, I go to a kibbutz, and the driver said, no, you don't go to the kibbutz. You're not allowed to go to the kibbutz. They are driven to what we call a mabarot, which is a camp. So this is a kind of slum, actually. And they say, okay, this is your new house is here. So they say, why? So I traveled from Yemen to get this slum. Why? So all his fight during all the film is to get a better life and a new house. And so it's a very it's a comedy, and For me, it's very, very political, actually. So I guess if you could see the 3 films, that would give you a lot of material to deal with this question of social housing in Israel and the question of exile, because there is always a kind of exile, and what kind of house or home the state of Israel, which is socialist at that time, can afford to immigrants. So Salah Shabati, Light Out of Nowhere, and Architektura has a documentary. For me, 3 pieces of a puzzle about this matters, and this is very rich, actually. Then I put you also Uri Zohar. I told you about Uri Zohar. He's very famous in Israel and also in France, for instance. And yeah, that's a kind of aperitivo for
surely
for Israeli cinema, because in Europe we don't know a lot about
no, in fact.
Also, I didn't know anything about those films before starting my PhD. I was not aware of them, excepting Amos Gittai. But I discovered Salah Shabati. I discovered Nissim Dayan. I discovered also Uri Zohar, and that was very new for me also.
The same thing for me. Thank you so much for everything, and I hope to see you in the next situation vis-a-vis.
Yes, it's very frustrating because I see only letters, so M-A-E. So it's very frustrating.
So thank you so much, Christelle.
Thank you for your kind invitation and
thank
your
you.
beautiful program.
Thank
you very much.
Bye, Christelle. Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.
Arrivederci a tutti.